teadaanded teile. Ma paluksin, et tõlgid teeksid oma piltnikud teeksid oma pildid ära ja võtaksid istet, ja teiseks, kui telefonid peaksid tahtma heliseda, siis tuletage endale meelde, et hääletule režiimile panemise võimalus on telefonil olemas, väikene vidin telefoni küljel võimaldab teil seda teha ja iPadi puhul kehtib sama. Ja meie külalised täna on teretulnud, meil on väga hea meel, kui meie väliskomisjoni külastab võimalikult palju inimesi, aga aplausid, kommentaarid ei ole külalistele paraku lubatud, nii et palun siis.
Followed the developments, the widespread protests in Iran very closely over the last weeks and months, where millions of citizens were demonstrating against the Iranian government and its policies. We were all deeply shocked by the violent repression and crackdown of those protests by the Iranian regime, which resulted in massacres of tens of thousands of innocent protesters and countless.
Lietuvių kapinai atsiprašo, bet dėl to, kad technikai nebuvo sutvarkę kanalų, vertimas yra tik dabar pradedamas. Taigi Europos parlamentas pakartotinai yra išreiškę susirūpinimą dėl Islamo revoliucijos gvardijos elgesio ir Irano žmonių priespaudos. Jis visada palaikė Irano žmonių demokratinius siekius ir pabrėžė jų teisę spręsti dėl savo būsimų vyriausybių. Po smurtinių Islamo revoliucinės gvardijos represijų Europos parlamento nariai besąlygiškai pareikalavo nedelsiant nutraukti smurtą prieš taikius protestuotojus. Buvo priimtos specialios rezoliucijos, reikalaujant, tai yra sausį ir vasarį buvo priimtos specialios rezoliucijos, reikalaujant nutraukti civilių gyventojų žudymą. Atsižvelgiant į tai, šio komiteto atstovai jau sausio 28 dieną nusprendė surengti keitimąsi nuomonėmis su žmonėmis pasisakančiais už laisvą Iraną. Žinoma, negalėjome dėja pakviesti visų. Politinės šio komiteto frakcijos siekė užtikrinti įvairialypį dalyvavimą ir kvietimai buvo išsiųsti 7 Irano svečiams. Gavau 1000 elektroninių laiškų žinučių skirtų man asmeniškai ir norėčiau dar kartą pabrėžti, kad šis sprendimas buvo priimtas bendrai mūsų komiteto koordinatorių visų kartu, kad būtų pakviesti konkrečiai šie svečiai. Deja, ponas Reza Pahlavi negalėjo dalyvauti dėl ankstesnių įsipareigojimų, tačiau labai džiaugiamės, kad dalyvauja 5 dalyviai, kai kurie iš jų yra kartu su mumis salėje, kiti dalyvauja nuotoliniu būdu. Simboliškai mes taip pat palikome vieną tuščią vietą čia podiume, siekiant atstovauti tiems, kurie yra Irane. Kolegos, mūsų šiandienos svečiai šiandien yra daktarė Shirin Ebadi, Sakharovo premijos ir Nobelio taikos premijos laureatė, prisijungs prie mūsų nuotoliu. Toliau šalia manęs sėdi ponas Mustafa Hijri, Irano Kurdistano demokratinės partijos vadovas. Toliau Abdullah Mohtadi, Irano Kurdistano Komalos partijos vadovas ir generalinis sekretorius. Toliau yra ponas Saeed Bashirtash, 7-ojo Abano fronto politinės organizacijos vadovas ir galiausiai ponia Sanaz Behzadi, menininkė ir žurnalistė, dirbanti atviros visuomenės skatinimo Irane asociacijoje APOS. Taigi, ponios ir ponai, sveikinu jūs visus. Prieš suteikdamas jums žodį, kadangi šis darbotvarkės klausimas yra susijęs su delegacija ryšiams su Iranu, dabar suteiksiu žodį jos pirmininkai poniai Hanai Neumann, prašau. Ačiū pirmininkė. Dėkoju atvykusiems svečiams, gerbiami kolegos. Šiandien
a ceasefire has been announced, it remains fragile, and while much of the international focus is on negotiations between the United States and the Iranian regime, one essential element risks remaining being overlooked once again, and that's the people of Iran. Inside the country, repression is escalating rapidly. Mass arrests and forced disappearances, including of Sakharov Prize laureate Nasrin Sotoudeh, the longest and most profound internet shutdown the world has ever seen, a dramatic rise in executions. This is the reality in which Iranians live today. And yet, the recent diplomatic efforts, whether from Washington or Tehran, do not reflect it, nor do they reflect the aspirations of the Iranian people for freedom, dignity, and democratic participation. Not a single point put forward by the negotiation teams, the US and Iran alike, is about the people of Iran. That is why today's roundtable matters. It is a modest but still important attempt to give space to Iranian voices. We are joined by representatives of Iran's democratic opposition, reflecting the diversity of Iranian society. And this diversity is not a weakness. It is the foundation for a free Iran, because any real transition will only succeed if it includes all parts of society. So let me begin by thanking those who accepted our invitation, because I know speaking here also comes at a cost for you. More threats, more pressure, more repression by the regime against you and your families. And then there is an empty chair. It stands for those who cannot be here, because they are inside Iran, imprisoned, silenced, cut off from the world by the brutality of the regime. This chair is a reminder to all of us. Many more should be part of this conversation, but they cannot be. And no single group, no single voice, no panel alone can speak for Iran as a whole. Let me be equally clear, Iran's future will not be decided in Brussels. Change must and will come from within Iranian society, but that does not make us spectators. It gives us responsibility to listen, to amplify, and to act with clarity, to place human rights at the center of our engagement, to speak out against executions, to demand the release of political prisoners, to oppose internet shutdowns and repression, and to finally drain the resources of the Islamic regime. But above all, to listen to those working for a free Iran. So to our speakers, I would like to ask the following questions. What is your vision for a free Iran? What will it take to make that vision reality? And as you in the European Parliament, how can the European Union best support in this process? So that one day, the people of Iran can decide freely how they want to be governed and by whom. Baroye Azadi.
Thank you very much, dear Hannah. Dr. Shirin Ebadi will speak first for 7 minutes, and colleagues, Ms. Ebadi will speak in Farsi. I hope you are connected, madam. Does anyone feel responsible? Is that a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
Can you?
Yes. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Dr. Ebadi. This is the European Parliament in Brussels, the Foreign Affairs Committee, and I will now give you the floor to roughly 7 minutes, if that's okay. Please, madam, okay. You can speak now.
ریاست محترم جلسه، نمایندگان ارجمند، خانم ها و آقایان، با تشکر از فرصتی که داده شد، امروزه کشورم ایران درگیر 2 جنگ است. جنگ اول با آمریکا و اسرائیل که مرحله دوم این جنگ از 28 فوریه شروع شد و اکنون در دوران آتشبس 14 روزه هستیم. جنگ دیگر جنگی است که بین جمهوری اسلامی با مردم ایران از سالها قبل شروع شده و هرگز آتشبسی هم در آن اتفاق نیفتاده است و من در مورد جنگ دوم با شما صحبت می کنم و چون این جنگ قدمت زیادی دارد من فقط 4 ماه اول سال 2026 را مورد بررسی قرار می دهم. در روزهای اول ژانویه مردم ایران برای چندمین بار در 15 سال گذشته به خیابان آمدند تا اعتراض خود را به شیوه حکمرانی جمهوری اسلامی اعلام و درخواست خود را برای تغییر به صورت مسالمت‌آمیز بیان کنند. مهمترین علل نارضایتی مردم کاهش ارزش پول ملی
The national currency has devalued and there is extreme poverty. There is extreme poverty in the country. And every day poverty is increasing and there is gross violation of human rights and there is administrative corruption. The people in the capital and 400 other cities have come to the streets and they are chanting slogans.
تحت پیشین ایران را صدا زده و
Yes, that's correct. Okay.
Many people were waiting for him to come to Iran, and this drew the ire of the regime. And on the command of the regime, the forces started attacking the people with lethal force, and the special rapporteur of the UN called it borderline with crime against humanity. The number of those killed is not clear yet, but as the media say, and also human rights organizations say, more than 40,000 people were killed, among them 230 students and 100 children. The number of those arrested from the beginning of January is more than 40,000 people, and the major part of that pertains to those who have been accused of participating in the protests, collaborating with the enemy, espionage, and also spreading lies. During the same period of time, more than 160 people have been executed. All these accusations have been carried out in camera and without the access of the accused to representation by a lawyer. In order to understand the repression in Iran better, I would like to remind you that during the 38 days of the military attack by Israel and the United States on the territory of Iran, the number of 3,753 people were killed. However, the Islamic Republic only during 2 days, during the protests of the month of January, killed tens of thousands more than that. From the beginning of January until yesterday, the regime has blacked out the internet for more than 1,100 hours. During this time, the films and videos regarding the killing of the people and their arrests were transmitted via Starlink, which was allowed in Iran before. And because of this reason, the regime also said that having a Starlink is collaboration with the enemy, and the number of people were arrested in this regard. The blackout of the internet has inflicted serious damage on internet business, and according to the economic calculations which have been made, the direct damages inflicted because of the blackout of internet is $30 to $40 million per day. As said by UNICEF, the Islamic Republic, in its war with the United States and Israel, has also started recruiting children to mobilize people, and also using them for inspection stations on the streets. and at least in this regard, one child has been killed. And the last point is that those people who had criticized the performance of the government, or in the Persian-speaking media outside of Iran, were active, and also a number of the followers of the Baha'i faith had their property expropriated. Recently, also, the names of 400 individuals was announced in this connection, whose property has been expropriated. In conclusion, I deem it necessary to remind you that in all the cases that I talked about, human governments have closed their eyes to the crimes of the Islamic Republic. We are not responsible only for our actions and our statements, but we are also responsible for our silence and our omissions. Thank you for your patience and the time that you gave me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ebadi, for your statement. Now I give the floor to Mr. Mustafa Hijri. The floor is yours for 7 minutes. Welcome.
هجا برزان اندامانی پارلمان سرتا دەمەوێت سپاسام بکەم بۆ ئەم دەرفەتە کە بانکێشتنی لانی کرد تاکو.
I would like to, first of all,
Excuse me.
Yes.
Not the chair. Can you hear me now? Yes, the problem. Okay, can we start? Please go on. Honorable members of parliament. First, I would like to thank you for this opportunity, having invited at least a segment of the Iranian opposition to present their views from here regarding the present and future of Iran. We would have liked for representatives of other nations, such as Turks, Arabs, Baluchis, Turkmen, and many others, to be here as well. But I hope this is a first step, and that in future more opportunities for most parties to express their views. The reason I choose to address you in Kurdish language today, it comes from the fact that our language has been denied and officially not recognized more than a century. This means our children have not been permitted to read and write in their mother tongue. However, today I speak here in this language so that I may have a small part in the struggle for the official recognition of my nation and its language. Honorable guests, this is the third time that Iranians are striving to build democracy, meaning that the people within the geographical political framework of Iran are in a continuous effort to reach freedom and liberation. Unfortunately, they have not succeeded until now. From the perspective of Kurdistan, and especially the Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan, there is a fundamental problem in Iran, a non-civil and monopolistic totalitarian state that has blocked the path to any form of freedom. In Iran, the state has deviated from a civil path twice. Once after the constitutional revolution, where the monarchical system turned the state into a monopolistic totalitarian system, and most recently since 1979, where the religious system turned the state into a tool for its own totalitarianistic and ideological rule. During the monarchical era, Persian identity used the state to erase all pluralism and impose only one identity, one language, one history, and one culture upon others to assimilate them. This is despite the fact that Iran is a country of multiple languages, identities, cultures, and histories. In 1979, Iranians rose up again with the hope of building a democratic system. However, this time the state was controlled by the Shiite religion of Velayat Faqih, in other words, guardianship of the Islamic jurist, which directed its efforts toward erasing the freedoms and pluralism within Iran. Today, we see that the Iranian state is not only a threat to Iranians, but a threat to the entire world. Our model for Kurdistan is, above all else, the control of the state's monopoly. Specifically, we want the state to be subordinate to the citizens, not the citizens subordinate the state. Our mechanism is a democratic, federal, and secular system. In this system, power is not concentrated in one center, allowing the state's monopolistic, totalitarianistic nature to be controlled. We see this as the only solution for building a democratic, free, and secular Iran, where the country belongs to all its inhabitants rather than one privileged group. In response to these demands, the monarchical regimes and the Islamic Republic that followed to protect their totalitarianism and monopoly have labeled these democratic and progressive demands as secessionism. Under this accusation, they have executed and imprisoned hundreds of thousands of people or forced them to leave their country under the pressure of repression and become refugees abroad. This is while the experience of the developed world has shown that respecting differences and officially recognizing them doesn't lead to the division of the country. On the contrary, it is the strongest tool for voluntary unity and the protection of the land and homeland. The unity of the country and their own regions. In this way, the unity of the land and homeland is realized when all diverse components participate in the administration of the country and their own regions. In this way, the country becomes a home for all inhabitants rather than a single group occupying the entire country through repression and violence and marginalizing others and depriving them of all their rights. Our movement is based on the human values and wishes, unlike the Pahlavi and Islamic Republic regimes, for all of Iran, including Kurdistan, to become a hub for stability and connection to the free world. Please remember that Kurdistan is the cradle of the woman life freedom movement. These values are principal and fundamental mindset for us, not just slogans. Our movement has defined itself within the framework of these values. Therefore, we do not think oppression, instability, or the absence of security. Rather, we strive to realize them, unless they once again attempt to destroy us. In conclusion, on behalf of the coalition, and especially on behalf of the Democratic Party of Iran, we thank you for this opportunity, and if time permits, we can further clarify these areas if you might have any questions. Thank you very much for listening and for your patience.
Mr. Hijri, I now give the floor to Mr. Abdullah Mohtadi, Leader and Secretary General of Komala Party of Iranian Kurdistan. Please.
Ladies and gentlemen, honorable members of the European Parliament, dear guests. First of all, thank you to the Foreign Affairs Committee and the Iran delegation for inviting us here today. The topic that brings us together, a free Iran, is incredibly important, not just for the people of Iran, but for the entire region and even the wider world. So, thank you again for organizing this timely event. Today, when people talk about the Iranian regime, they often think of armed proxy groups, missiles and drones targeting cities, businesses, hotels, refineries, and energy facilities, setting entire region on fire, and of its involvement in foreign wars. But the truth is, the main victims of this regime have always been the people of Iran themselves. Long before this regime ever fired a missile abroad, it declared war on its own people. It shut down the free press, banned labor unions, violently cracked down on women, and imposed severe restrictions on their lives. It launched attacks on Kurdistan without any provocation and without any justification, creating scenes of terrible violence. Universities were taken over by armed militias and turned into places of repression and bloodshed. Regions like Turkmen Sahara and Khuzestan were brutally suppressed. Thousands of activists, political, civil, women, and even teenagers were arrested, tortured, and executed without any fair trial. In short, this regime's war against its own people started long before any conflict with the United States or Israel, and long before European cities became targets of its terrorist operations. We should also remember that the attack on Kurdistan happened even before the takeover of the US Embassy in Tehran. That is exactly why the issues of freedom in Iran must not be overshadowed by the clouds of war or pushed aside because of different opinions about recent conflict or because of any criticism one might have of US policies. Supporting freedom in Iran, supporting people's movement for change, including their right to change the system, is what we truly expect from Europe. So let's not keep complaining about the atrocities of the past and concentrate on what a new, free, democratic Iran should look like. What we are looking for and what we have been fighting for is a democratic, pluralist, tolerant Iran, where no one single social group, no one single ethnicity or religion or political trend to dominate the powers of the state, impose a new exclusivity and therefore a new dictatorship. What we need is a new constitution that respects diversity, pluralism, and inclusiveness, embraces power-sharing arrangements, and commits to the rule of law, equal citizenship, human rights, freedom and democracy, peace and development, and thus makes Iran a reliable and responsible member of the international community. a free, democratic and pluralistic Iran, one that respects human rights and is built on a modern, forward-looking constitution that recognizes, among other things, the rights of Kurds and other nationalities in Iran, can also become a reliable partner for peace and global development. Long live freedom, Bji Jin Jian Azadi. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mohtadi. Now I give the floor to Mr. Saeed Bashirtash, the leader of the political organization, the Seven Aban Front. Please.
Thank you very much. جناب رئیس، نمایندگان محترم، خانم ها و
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chairman, I'm talking to you actually on behalf of the Iranian nation, representing the voice of the Iranian nation so that it reaches you, a historic nation, a monolith, a very united nation with solidarity so that that is fighting for its freedom actually. I'm speaking on behalf of the people who have been actually since the January killings have been actually deprived of internet access. The Islamic regime has actually embarked upon this internet blackout so that behind the closed doors it continues to kill the people. With the call out of Count Prince Reza Pahlavi, millions of Iranians actually got to the streets on the 18th and 19th of the month of Day. It actually, what happened, it paved the way for the historic killings and atrocities where actually between 40 to 50,000 people were killed during that period. Even the injured people were kidnapped from hospitals and they were killed. Over 100,000 people have been arrested and they are actually being tortured under the most inhumane conditions. And with all this, the people of Iran, they haven't actually received any sort of solidarity and empathy that they deserve by the international community. The Iranians are actually demanding the most primary actually human rights, dignity, human rights, those values on the basis of which the human society, the Western society has been built. The Iranian nation is actually the biggest partner of the free world in the Middle East. But at the same time, the Islamic regime is actually the biggest enemy of the Western world in the Western world. Israel is actually within the reach of the Islamic regime's missiles. Brussels is actually within the reach of the missiles of the regime. Not only the Iranian nation, but also the civilizational. It's an existential threat to the civilization of the West, in the same way that it has been mentioned in the preamble of the Constitution of the Islamic Republic. It's actually looking to establish an ummah, a global ummah. It's actually the enemy of the Iranian nation, also the Western world. But at the same time, unfortunately, people within Europe haven't realized this reality. And the latest war has actually been named has been attributed to the economic problems of Eastern Europe, but it's actually the whole nature of the Islamic regime that is threatening the whole Europe as a whole in the future, and also it's the rogueness of the regime that is threatening everything. The Islamic regime on its own, more than all terrorist activities, terrorist organizations combined, have actually carried out terrorist activities within Europe. Its efforts and endeavors to actually acquire nuclear weapons is actually a very serious threat to the security of Europe. Its assistance to the Russian regime in the Ukraine war is actually threatening very directly the security of Europe. It has actually imposed insecurity on the whole region of the Middle East, and it's a Hitler-style kind of the regime has been actually at war with all its neighboring countries, including the 9 countries that were attacked actually in the latest episode of war. Europe actually has been also threatened by the refugees from Syria, from Afghanistan, also the insecurity of shipping in Bab al-Mandab in the Red Sea, and also the insecurities that have been actually promoted by the regime inside the region. In the 39-day war, actually, we have never been actually witnessing a rise in the refugees from Iran, actually, because Iranians are actually aspiring for the collapse of this regime and actually reaching the freedom that they love, would like to have actually for their nation. Actually, the nightmare is actually the survival of this regime. If this nightmare materializes, then of course there will be millions of Iranians who will become refugees and come to Europe. And also the continuation of this regime after the massacre of the January massacre, it will also be the defeat of a discourse of democracy in the world. Because if this kind of an atrocity is left without actually response, then dictators are going to embark upon more massacres of this kind in the future. Their representatives. Iran has the second largest reserves of gas and the fourth largest actually reserve of oils, and also and possesses a very large educated cadres, and also but only the level of trade, the volume of trade between Europe and Iran is actually only $5 billion. But with the collapse of the Islamic regime, it will pave the way for actually thousands of billions of dollars, trillions of dollars, and Iran can actually turn into a machine of development for Europe. And also it can ensure energy for the continent of Europe. Iran is also one of the most ancient nations and civilizations of the world. In 1906, we had the constitutional movement, actually, and it was actually one of the primary experiences of democratization and seeking democracy in that part of the world. And now people want the collapse of this regime and aspiring for a liberal democracy. And the Iranian nation has paid a lot of prices for getting freedom and democracy. Over the last 4 years, we have had 4 waves of movement of democracy. In the woman life freedom, and also before that, the 2 previous waves of freedom seeking, and also the January wave. And the interaction there's not any interaction now happening between the Iranian nation and the Iranian regime. And the Iranian nation does not want anything else apart from the collapse of this regime. This is a reality that the world should understand. The people of Iran have never been disunited with this kind of solidarity after the massacre of January. This kind of a united spirit has actually strengthened the thousands of years of civilizational spirit amongst Iranians, millions of Iranians from across the country, from Kermanshah, the Kurdish city, and also to Mashhad, the largest city of Khorasan in the east, from Tabriz to Rasht in the north, to Bushehr in the shores of the Persian Gulf, got to the streets and mentioned the name of their leader, Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. Today I'm here actually at the European Parliament so that I become the voice of the Iranian people. On behalf of the Iranian people, and also the 7th Aban front, and I would like to actually ask you to recognize the will of the people for democracy, for seeking democracy. We'd like you to evict to this the Iranian ambassadors from Europe, and also recognize the movement led by Reza Pahlavi, and to also support the victory of the Iranian people is actually a victory of Europe, and also victim of the world, and also humanity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And now I give the floor to the artist and journalist Ms. Sanaz Behzadi, who works with the Association for the Promotion of Open Society on Iran. The floor is yours, madam.
The coincidence of this event with the Holocaust Remembrance Day recalls a crime in which millions of Jews were brutally murdered. It also compels us to remember the Iranian victims of what we call the Iranian Holocaust, victims of horror, massacre, terror, and execution, not only in the past 3 months, but over the past 47 years, from every ethnicity, from every city, and every corner of the country. So I would like to propose a moment of silence for both the Jewish victims of the Holocaust and the Iranian victims of this ongoing tragedy. A moment of silence for Nika, for Sepehr Baba, and for thousands of other innocent people, from Abbas Hoveida to Feridun Farrukhzad. Dear everyone, I appreciate the opportunity to address one of the key challenges of European foreign policy. My name is Sanaz Behzadi. I represent the Association for the Promotion of Open Society, an institution active in the fields of democratic transition, civil society development, good governance, and policy dialogue on Iran. Let me be clear from this outset. The discussion is not only about Iran. It is directly linked to Europe's strategic interests, its energy security, and its role in shaping one of the most sensitive geopolitical transitions of our time. What is unfolding in Iran today is not a temporary crisis, but the convergence of three deep accelerating trends. First, the widespread collapse of the political legitimacy of the Islamic Republic, a reality clearly reflected on the continuation of protests, reports by independent institutions, and the regime's increasingly defensive reactions. The repression has not been merely political. Over the past 47 years, patterns of inequality and discrimination in Iran have been driven less by purely ethnic targeting and more by structural factors, namely unaccountable governance, rent-seeking resource allocation, uneven regional development, and systematic political exclusion, structures that without institutional reform will continue to reproduce themselves. Second, the escalation of military tensions in the region, with a real risk of expanding into a trans-regional conflict. And third, an issue that's received not enough attention in policy discourse. The question of transition in Iran is no longer a distant prospect. It is a present reality. The question is no longer whether change will occur, but what form it will take and whether we are prepared for it. These trends taken together have turned Iran into a critical node in the global security and economy, with direct implications for Europe, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to highlight a geopolitical reality. The Strait of Hormuz is not merely a regional waterway. It is the most vital choke point in the global energy infrastructure. Around 20% of the world's oil trade passes through it daily, a significant portion of which reaches Europe. The Islamic Republic has repeatedly threatened to block this route, and under escalating crisis conditions, this threat is no longer hypothetical. Its consequences for Europe are clear: energy price spikes, inflationary pressure, and so on. Yet the reality also has another dimension. A stable and democratic Iran would not use this position as leverage, but could instead become a reliable partner for Europe's energy security and regional stability. This is not idealism, but a clear definition of strategic interest. We are not here merely to describe a crisis, but to present a practical path forward. A real win-win scenario exists already, rooted in a structured transition framework designed by a team of capable Iranians. The Iran Prosperity Project, IPP, led by Prince Reza Pahlavi, is not an abstract proposal, but a phased roadmap for political transition focused on fundamental reforms, preventing a power vacuum and establishing a democratic government. In any transition process, Having a unifying political center is crucial. Today, initiatives around the leadership of Prince Reza Pahlavi have been able to create part of this capacity. Alongside this, transitional justice is decisive. The Islamic regime in Iran faces a heavy record of human rights violations. And without accountability mechanisms, any transition risks descending into cycles of revenge. For this reason, efforts are underway by a committee under the leadership of Shirin Ebadi. Within the same project, the project team to design mechanisms for the truth-sitting, for accountability and social reconciliation, with the aim of balancing justice and stability. History shows that without this balance, sustainable transition is not achievable. Ladies and gentlemen, within this framework, a contradiction must also be addressed. The continued operation of Islamic Republic embassies in Europe, while the same unaccountable structures are the source of crisis, is not aligned with democratic objectives. A reassessment of this approach could form part of a more coherent, value-based policy. We, Iranians living in Europe, consider it ourselves our home. And we see it as the home of our children. We see the future of our children here. For this reason, we speak to you today both as Iranians and as European citizens. The European Union's approach has so far been largely cautious and reactive, but given the pace of developments, this approach is at the risk of missing a decisive moment. Therefore, 3 concrete steps are recommended. First, revising Europe's diplomatic tools, shifting from crisis management towards preparations for transition scenarios. Second, establishing structured dialogue with civil society and responsible opposition actors, particularly those committed to nonviolent institutional approaches, the ones who speak for everyone in Iran, not any specific group. And third, taking a more active role in shaping the international conversation on Iran's future, before even reduce Europe to a purely reactive position. Dear everyone, Iran is entering one of the most consequential turning points in its modern history. How this transition is managed will affect not only millions of us, Iranians, but also regional stability, Europe's energy security, and the credibility of the international community. What is required now is an accurate understanding of realities, readiness for multiple scenarios, and the political will to act decisively and responsibly.
Ms. Behzadi, may I ask you to finally conclude?
Yes. This window is still open. The Association of the Promotion of Open Society stands ready to contribute through analysis, facilitation, and engagement of the Iranian civil society, the facilitation of dialogue, and engagement with Iranian civil society. A win-win outcome is possible, but only with timely action. Thank you for listening. I talked too much.
Thank you very much to all our speakers. I will now open the floor for questions and comments, starting with the representatives of the political groups. It's 2 minutes each, and for the EPP, Michael Gahler.
Thank you very much to all who have contributed here to this session. I think there is a broad consensus here in the House that the Iranian people deserve better. They deserve to live in a democratic state, in a state where every citizen is respected, has his and her rights fully granted, and where the diversity of the society and of the nation is also duly reflected. Insofar, I hope that those who are like-minded in this sense find common ground. And that is, of course, the challenge and also a question. I would wish, and that is a question to all of you, that you could, with the common goal of overcoming the mullah regime, whether you can find enough patience, enough openness to tolerate yourselves amongst yourselves and, so to say, see the higher common goal as a fundament to work together. So insofar, I would like to hear whether those of you who are here and beyond, of course, are willing and able to seek dialogue. And the question is, of course, for us, can we facilitate such dialogue? That is the one thing. The other thing is the question whether this current war from the US and Israel against the regime, my fear is that to an extent they bomb the people back to the regime. Is that a legitimate fear? Is that a point where the regime could profit from in the current situation, that more people would, so to say, rejoin accepting the regime for a while, if only the war ends? My last, it's over. Well, I'm stopping there. Others will continue with the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for the S&D natural.
I'm using the Spanish to the guests to use the headphones.
Our first guest talked about the big conflicts. So there's the war and then the conflict of the regime against its own people. And I think we should offer a platform for hope for the opposition forces working outside of the country. We don't want to specifically support one side over another. We want to support everyone who is ensuring that the Iranians can look after themselves. But I think there is also a third conflict, was while it is true that as regards public opinion about what's happening Iranians abroad, there is an obstacle from about how the mullah regime can be overturned, and there are continuous accusations made by one side against the other. For the moment, there is no possibility to change the situation, and we're seeing where there are accusations being levied one against the other, and this doesn't create the possibility for a space of hope. There is the Freedom Congress, the IPP, which was referred to. There are a number of opportunities. We know it's difficult, but try to cooperate, try to find platforms, shared platforms among yourselves, because otherwise all of our support to create platforms will just create further exclusion among yourselves. So really we need to create hope for the people of Iran. But I would like to know your opinion about the conflicts in Iran. The situation was different at the beginning, but now I would like to know what is your opinion about whether or not the war as is taking place, whether it will be useful or not for a change of regime in the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Natural. Who would like to take the floor for the PFE group? No request. Then for the ECR, Sebastian Tinkinen.
Thank you, Chair. Since we have a freedom of speech, I will say the following. I regret that we are witnessing this moment. Reza Pahlavi's name is the only one being shouted in the protests organized by Iranians across Europe. For this reason, I requested that we invite him to address the European Parliament in plenary session. The majority of the Parliament did not support that proposal, so hearing the voice of the Iranian people was downgraded to a committee-level hearing. Following the coordinators' decision, it became clear that Reza Pahlavi could not participate due to prior commitments. Nevertheless, this meeting is still taking place, and I now hear Reza Pahlavi being criticized on the panel in his absence. I wonder whether this is what Iranians expected when we told them we would listen to their voices. I truly respect the presence and time of all the participants here today, because a multi-party democracy requires a diverse opposition. However, I deeply regret the signal we are sending today to the majority of the Iranian people. If anything, this hearing is not balanced, and we all know it. Thank you.
Sorry, but I didn't get your question. So it was more description, but not a question.
There was no question, it was a comment.
Ms. Benadi, I'm chairing this meeting. That's okay for you? Look, Sebastian, I don't want to comment on what you just said, but it's not 100% factually correct, what you just said. I mean, with all due respect, you know exactly that we agreed among coordinators to organize this hearing. Proposals were made, who was supposed to be invited. The groups made proposals, and then we sent out invitations. And some accepted, others, due to prior commitments, couldn't come. Just that we get it right. And I don't think that was 100% fair what you just said, because this is not how it was organized. Now, next is for the Renew Group, who? Marie-Agnes Strack-Zimmermann.
Thank you, Chair. For decades, Iranians have been oppressed by a ruthless regime that grants its people hardly any freedom, a regime that murders Iranians simply for wanting to live in freedom, a regime that finances terrorist groups and proxies across the Middle East, a regime that supplies Russia with weapons in its war against Ukraine, affecting Europe's security directly, a regime developing nuclear capabilities and ballistic missiles with range that reach Europe itself, a regime that intimidates Iran's living right here on European soil. So for decades, we tried diplomacy, we applied pressure, with limited results. Yet, while the trajectory remains uncertain, one principle remains clear: the future of Iran must be determined by its own people, and I'm therefore grateful that we are joined today by voices that represent the breadth, diversity and courage of the Iranian people. On the 16th March, Reza Pahlavi announced a transitional justice framework under the Iran Prosperity Project. So, Ms. Ebadi, you have spent decades defending human rights in Iran at significant personal cost, and you have now been appointed chair of this transition committee. I would therefore like to ask you two questions. First, where does the committee work stand today? What has been achieved already, and what are the next steps? And second, what do you need from the European Union? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now for the Greens, I give the floor to Thomas Weitz, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to all of you for coming and sharing with us the part of the assessment that we just heard from colleague Strack-Zimmermann. I can totally share, and I spare that in my intervention. I must say I'm a bit irritated about the name Reza Pahlavi described as a prince. I think Iranian people shall decide in elections about who leads them, and we shouldn't kind of even give the impression that we kind of suggest to return to a monarchy, but that's maybe just my personal irritation. I have a very concrete question. I mean, this regime was only able to uphold its power because of economic powers. These economic powers very much resulting into the on the export of fossil fuels. I don't think it's a positive outlook for the European Union to even increase our dependency on fossil fuels wherever they come from. So I don't think this is part of a win-win situation. We shall get rid of our dependency of fossil fuels wherever they come from. But my concrete question is, economically, the Revolutionary Guards are much more than a militia or part of the army or a security service, but they are an enormous, and they hold an enormous economic power in Iran and beyond Iran. Also, in many of our European states, there are companies that have links to the Revolutionary Guards, that have links to Iranian companies that are circumventing the sanctions, that are circumventing restrictions. What is your impression impression, are we on the European Union side doing enough to investigate, to go after dubious money streams, to go after dubious companies, investments into real estate, and so on and so forth? Do you think this is sufficient, or is there more work to do? Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. For the left, Danilo Della Valle. No, Mark Botenga, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks to all the guests for their input. Maybe just as you know, I don't consider that the West's policy in the Middle East has been one of promoting human rights and democracy. It's been most about oil and gas, and this is why we have been so strongly criticizing all human rights violations in Iran, but have looked away when the Saudis executed hundreds, or are much less critical of the fact that countries like the Emirates or Qatar have no democracy. And let me not even start about our complicity with Israeli crimes. It is about oil and gas, and I think one example of that has been also recently when we hear the EU representatives unable to condemn the massacre of the Minab girls' school, that's bombed by the US allies. We're unable as European Union to clearly condemn that, or even condemn the war, the US-Israeli war against Iran, which clearly shows double standards. Russia attacks Ukraine, we condemn. The United States attack Israel, attack Iran, we do not condemn. I have some concrete questions in this regard on the future of Iran you have. First, I'm not sure if you've all condemned, expressed empathy with the victims of the Minab girls' school, but I want to ask very concretely to our Kurdish invitees. You are often accused of wanting to cut a piece of Iran. Is that true? Or is your model more something like the autonomy we now see in Iraq, Syria, in that kind of, what is your model? I mean, Syria is obviously also chaos. Iraq doesn't really exist anymore, centralized government-wise. To Mrs. Ebadi, there was hundreds of civil rights activists, human rights activists recently calling for the withdrawal, the revoke of your Nobel Prize because you called for military intervention in Iran. Now, recently I heard you say that bombs will not get rid of the Ayatollahs. What is your position exactly, in favor or against war? Mr. Bashirtash, you participated in demonstrations with the Israeli flags. The Israeli regime has killed tens of thousands of children throughout the region. Is this a model you support, or because in that case, I'm not sure where you stand on human rights, so I would like you to clarify this. Because if we really want the sovereignty and popular sovereignty of the Iranian people, we need to be clear about the values first. Thank you.
All right, thank you. For the ESN group, no request to take the floor. Then I now give the floor to Lucas Furlas, AFET Standing Rapporteur on Iran. Please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I would like to say a few words on the subject as a standing rapporteur for Iran. We stand with the people of Iran, closely following the conflict and the developments. This is not a situation that we started, but we cannot remain passive when something so serious is happening. From the very first moment in my role as standing rapporteur, I have been in contact with those involved. What is needed now is a clear and common strategy, a plan with direction and purpose. Let me be clear, the Iranian people will decide about its future. No one else. We stand with the people of Iran, not only in words, but in commitment. The Iranian people deserve a future with freedom. They deserve dignity, justice, and respect for their rights. I will continue to listen, to act, and to support the people of Iran. For the next 3 years, in my role as rapporteur, I will remain available and engaged. The next day in Iran must be built on this foundation, a country open to its people, a country where voices are not silenced, a country that looks to the future with hope. This is not only a regional issue, it is a matter of values, and we must stand firm. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Luca. I now give the floor to other members who would like to speak. In the moment, we have on our list for the EPP, Zhelyana Zovko. Then we have Andrei Kovachev. We have for the SND, Daniel Attar. And we have non-inscrit Mr. Brown and Ms. Sorrell. Evin Inchir. Who else? Mr. Della Valle. Okay, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 speakers. I would like to ask you to, 1.5 minutes perhaps, that should be possible. And we kick off with Ms. Sofko.
Right, thank you very much. I will follow up for what my colleague have said already. It seems to me that we don't have a full representation of the opposition here, but nevertheless, I would like to ask the chair to give us also information. Is there any possibility to organize a separate hearing or a new hearing with the leader of the main wave of the opposition as well, so to have a full picture? But nevertheless, we have to rely on the fact that the opposition that we like to listen here understands what this parliament has done in the last few decades with the resolutions on the respect of human rights and the breaches of human rights in Iran. So this should not be forgotten in this cacophony of the military actions that are taking place. And can you just give me the answer? How was this women rights and the attack of women in Iran, how was that treated? Was there any discussions among the oppositions and how on the consequences of that? Because we haven't heard a lot in recent times on that. So can you give us the answer? Because sometimes we can support somebody who can turn out to be the same thing, is just in a different package. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I give the floor to Mr. Attar, who's also the Vice Chair of the delegation.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the people who have came to this Parliament to address this subcommittee, which is not a lower level, but it is an institutional body, an important one in this Parliament, and I thank you for being here. It's a privilege to be here in this room, as I told you earlier today, because while we deliver speeches in the chamber, from the comforts of the chamber in Strasbourg, you are fighting on the ground to bring about change in Iran, change for the people of Iran, the wide spectrum of the people of Iran. And our role is simply to support you in your struggle. Your struggle is our struggle. Your fight is our fight. It's not just Western values, as I said earlier, and in other opportunities. The respect for human rights, equality, freedom of expression, and freedom of thought, these are all common human values, our values, and we will continue to support you. And my question is a genuine, not political one. There has been a lot of questions raised about the military operation. We have found ourselves in a very delicate and sensitive situation whereby, on one hand, we are against foreign military intervention. There is no doubt about my position on that. But on the other hand, we have heard people saying that this military operation gave hope to the people of Iran. It gave them the best chance to topple the regime. I want to hear your position on this. What is your opinion on this military operation? Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Kovachev.
Thank you very much, Chair. The representative of different opposition groups to this horrible regime in Tehran, which caused so much damage and so much trouble for the whole world, but especially for the Iranian people. I would like to express my full solidarity with the people of Iran, and the future and destiny of Iran is in your hands, in the hands of all Iranian people, and not in the hands of us or of our political orientations. But we would like only to hear from you how we can help you, what kind of platform we can build for you, what we can do. And our real call is that please unite for the how Mikhail Galar mentioned, for the biggest value, which is the change of the regime and the democratic, secular future of your great country. You need to unite. You must unite to have a united front against this terrible regime. please, I know that you come from different background, and then you have memories of the past, and then some of you don't like monarchy, some of you like. Doesn't matter this. For the moment, the much more important is the change of the regime, and I'm very unhappy with some member states of the European Union, which they say we can continue with this regime, or we are not aiming a regime change. Yes, this is the seek of the people of Iran, that a regime change needs to be done, and we are here to hear how we can help you with this regime change. If you are divided, then there is indeed no hope. And again, the question about the war in Iran, which is by United States and Israel, is it something which can help, or in opposite will be difficult for the regime change?
Thank you. Next is Ibn Inshir.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks to the guests for being here with us today. I want to, as my colleagues have already done also, show solidarity with all the people in Iran, all parts of the society. And of course, it is not up to us here in the European Parliament to decide who is going to lead the opposition in Iran. What we do, as I've heard that everybody at the stage have asked for also, is to bring together the opposition, not decide that one day we should have some part of it, the other day we should name one person as the leader of the opposition. It's not up to us. And what is being chanted on the streets in the European Union or in Iran, I believe that some have expressed that some names are only being chanted, which is not fully correct, because there are other things that also has been chanted. With this said, we need to go from showing solidarity to also take actions. Here it is important to hear from you, what can we concretely to do from the side of the European Parliament and from the side of the European Union? Of course, we do not want to see a divided Iran. We want to see an Iran that encompasses the whole population. We don't want to see the country being ended up in the same situation as Syria is, where some part of this society do not know if they will be granted their fundamental rights or not. Here we, as the European Union, have a responsibility. And finally, also, I'm a bit curious to know what is your view on the actions of Israel and US. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Mr. De La Valle.
Grazie.
Thank you.
Una sincera.
It's wonderful to hear from you and to see you face to face. I know that you are working very hard. We should also spare thought for those who are seeking democracy and humanitarian aims, and those who are the victims of bombings. I think the EU has lost credibility because of its double standards in for instance, the way it reacted to Ukraine and the way it reacted to the Israeli genocide in Gaza. Now we see military aggression against Lebanon and Iran, and the EU is going from a loss of credibility to a ridiculous image now. The US bombs on the Minab school, and we say that there's an ancient history, a wonderful people in Iran, and that the solutions for Iran should be in the hands of the people themselves, not bringing back the monarchy, not bringing back a Shah sponsored by Washington or Brussels. And my question to our guests would be, what do you think of the US and Israeli bombings of Iran? Do you condemn them? What do you think about a possible Syria-style scenario for Iran?
Mr. Brown.
God bless Iranian people. I'm very grateful for the contribution that Persia has in world's history, and that is why I don't personally feel authorized to conspire against or for any regimes, any authorities over there. And I am a member of this Parliament and this Commission for relatively very short period of time, nearly 2 years, and I can observe that every month or two you propose here such a conspiracy. Every month or two you are debating some regime overthrow, you are debating restoring democracy here or there, and I refuse this offer. I don't want my nation, my country, my state to be engaged in such matters. The only regime I would really love to contribute to overthrowing is this regime, this Eurokolhoz, European super state regime. Obviously, I want to contribute to some good change of government in my country, but I refuse to conspire against any authorities in Tehran, and I do not recommend any of you to take part in such actions.
Next is Ms. Sorel, please.
I speak in French. J'aimerais savoir.
Could I ask whether you have any suggestions for us? Any alternatives to sanctions? What we have seen is that sanctions fail. I would oppose them. The people tend to suffer, not the leaders. So do you have any examples for us? Do you believe that there is any rallying around the flag effect in Iran? In other words, under intense bombing campaigns carried out by Trump and Netanyahu, can you see a strengthening of the Iranian regime, which would be exactly the opposite of what we seek to achieve? Now, one of the speakers talked about a model similar to that in Lebanon. Now, we have seen destruction in Lebanon and division between the different religions there. Another point, some of our colleagues need to learn that, well, what is democracy? Before conflict broke up, I heard from Iranians, they did not want the West to be interfering, given what had happened with the Ayatollah. At the time, they talked about Reza Pahlavi, and they said that Reza Pahlavi seemed to be Trump and Netanyahu's candidate. If that is the case, then, well, that would speak volumes for them. Thank you.
Right, thank you. I can now give the floor back to each of our speakers for replies. I would suggest try to limit yourself to 3-4 minutes each, 4 minutes the maximum. And the first would be Ms. Ebadi. I hope you're still connected. So, Dr. Ebadi?
Yes.
Yes. Minutes.
Mr. President, thank you very much. Allow me to tell you one thing. When we talk about Reza Pahlavi, we have to remember that he is the son of a Shah, of a king. Well, when you are the son of a king, you say prince. I don't know why this is such a problem. This is very understandable, and this is a point which is very understandable. And I don't understand why it would make the honorable member of the European Parliament angry. He is a prince. He was the son of a Shah. He's a prince. Yeah, and the other thing is whether he is a candidate of Israel and the United States. Reza Pahlavi has time and again emphasized that they are not the enemy of any country, quite contrary to the Islamic Republic that from the very first day said that its foreign policy is based on the destruction of Israel. And all the policies have been along that line. And that has caused all our budget to go to the proxies and their military equipment. And the person who is asking this question is concerned that Israel might support the Princess of Pahlavi. I would like to throw back a question at this person. The duty of the destruction of Israel, by whom was it given to the Islamic Republic, for which we have spent 47 years of our budget in that respect? We do not have a common border with Israel. Why is it that the Islamic Republic has spent all its plans and programs for 47 years in order to destroy Israel? Regarding what can be done and what expectations do we have from Europe, I would like to say the following. After the war in Ukraine started, the property of those affiliated with Putin, his relatives, his family, was expropriated. You can do the same thing now. You can refuse from helping the survival of the regime. We do not forget that when in the court in Stockholm a criminal was condemned to life in prison, you quickly exchanged it and bartered it with a hostage. And we do not forget that also here in Belgium there was a terrorist diplomat who had been arrested while carrying explosives and had been condemned to 20 years in prison. You bartered it with Iran, and he was welcomed with flowers, and he is now one of the diplomats in Europe right now. I have a lot of examples to give you to show you that Europe closes its eyes to the crimes which are committed against the people of Iran by the Islamic Republic. You have closed your eyes on that. And my request is that your actions should not be limited to have meetings, to hear what we have to say, and then still do business as usual and continue the same as you have been. Why is it that you do not recall European ambassadors? Why is it that you don't expel Iranian diplomats from your countries? You can reduce the activities of the embassies to chargé d'affaires, and it will show to the government of Iran that the European Union cares for the people of Iran and pays attention to the people of Iran. A question was addressed to me why it is that I'm not paying attention to the children in Minab. Please go and refer to what I have written, to my actions, to my work, how much I have talked about and I have written about the children in Minab, how much work I have done. If I did not right now refer to them because I was given only 7 minutes, and during the 7 minutes which were given to me, I focused on the violations of human rights only during the last 4 months. Look, during 4 months only, all this has happened to the people of Iran. And still you are afraid that Iran will become another Syria. Have you forgotten that the protection of Bashar al-Assad by Iran brought about the catastrophe there? I am so surprised to hear what you're saying. The news of Iran, why don't you study the news from Iran to understand what is really happening there? And when we talk, your biggest concern is why there is a division and dispute between us Iranians. Contrary to what you think, we are all united about one single thing, and that is a very important thing. We believe that the Islamic Republic should go, and instead of it, a democratic regime should come.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Thank you very much. And now...
لا قسەکانی یەکێک لە بەڕێزاندا ئەوە هاتبوو کە ئێوە دەتوانن یەک بگرن و پێکەوە یەکریز بن لە دژی ڕژیمی کۆماری ئیسلامی.
Now, you are asking us to unite to oppose the regime in Iran. In Kurdistan, we have 6 parties. We have united around common cause, and we are working with 12 other parties in Iran. We have allies for years. We have been cooperating. We are working to claim back the rights that the Islamic regime in Iran have deprived us of. To strengthen our efforts, we need support from the European Union. The European Union can help us in this regard. Help us to foster closer ties, to build an alternative on the US-Israeli attacks on Iran. We were told that perhaps these attacks might drive people back to the Iranian regime to rally around the flag. Well, then I would ask people, are you willing to accept anything to support this regime? There are always drawbacks to any war, but for over 40 years, the US and Europe has sought to change the policies of this regime, but from day one, nothing has changed. The Iranian regime has not budged. Has there been any reduction in the terrorism risk? Many efforts have been undertaken. We in Kurdistan agreed from the very start that we would push for our rights, but the Iranian regime refused to work with us. They established terrorist organizations and declared jihad. The Islamic regime called for negotiations with us. Our representatives went to Vienna, sat down with Iranian regime representatives to seek peaceful negotiations, but they continued terrorist attacks and murder. The regime has constantly persecuted Iranian people. They do not show any understanding of human rights and international law. They do not understand such language. It is not enough to condemn the actions of the Islamic regime. Europe must do more. Indeed, Europe needs to safeguard its own security, to protect itself against terrorist attacks. And for this reason, it must cooperate with the people of Iran to defeat the current regime. The regime may be weakened, but it will wish to continue its ideology. It will not budge an inch. That is why we believe that the people should support any efforts to take action to defeat the regime, to ease the pressure on the Iranian people. It would be helpful to find a solution together with the US and with the Iranian opposition forces to defeat the regime. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to Mr. Mohtadi.
As for the people rallying around the flag, this is not the case in Kurdistan, in Kurdish areas, but I haven't seen any such things in the whole of Iran. So I think this is more of a myth than reality. The second thing is what Europe can, as far as the Iran is concerned. Two range of things. One, putting more pressure, adopting a tougher policy, a tougher stance against the Iranian regime, be it economically, politically, diplomatically. Second, helping the Iranian opposition getting united, facilitating the dialogue, providing forums for that. And I dare say that please find, however you might have some differences with the United States, find ways, as far as the Iran is concerned, find ways to cooperate with them, to have them engaged also in this effort. We in Kurdistan have managed to getting united. We have now an alliance of Iranian Kurdistan political parties. We also, as Kurds, can play an important role, a significant role in getting the Iranian opposition united. We are committed to that, and we will be partners for that. That is why I ask the European Union and this committee to work on helping, assisting, facilitating unification of the Iranian democratic opposition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mohtadi. Mr. Bashirtash.
One question was about unity of the opposition forces. First of all, in the past 47 years, I had never seen so much unity among Iranians, and so clearly. As I said, from Kermanshah, which is the biggest Kurdish populated city of Iran, which was one of the main seats of the opposition protests, until Mashhad, from Tabriz to Rasht, from the north to Bushehr. The Iranians, as called on by the Reza Pahlavi, took to the streets, and I never witnessed such level of protest among Iranian people. And after 47 years, I can say for sure that we seem to have one definite leader. And of course, the Prince Reza Pahlavi has called for unity among all political parties, but these must be based on principles. People cannot just unite without any principles. And to that end, the Prince Reza Pahlavi has said there should be territorial integrity, there should be citizens' rights, and a system based on citizen rights and equality among all Iranians, irrespective of their gender differences, of their racial and ethnic differences. What is more important is that the people of Iran have to determine what kind of system they want. And unfortunately, there are some who say that the Iranian people do not have the right to choose their own political system. Some are saying they shouldn't have a monarchy, and some say don't want to accept territorial integrity. Territorial integrity within Iran, for Iran, is tantamount to recognizing international borders. It's like some people say that they don't respect international borders. And without that, there cannot be any unity. So, another question that was asked was that, look, it's not the Western nations, Western people who can tell Iranians what is good, what is bad. All they can say is that the future regime must be based on citizens' rights, but they cannot say we don't like this person because he is the son of so-and-so, or we don't like this person because they belong to some military power. No, it's the Iranian people and Iranian people only who can determine that. With regards to inviting the Prince Reza Pahlavi, he is in Italy. That's why he couldn't take place in this. He was taking part in a Senate meeting in Italy. But I think it would be a good idea if the European Parliament invites him as the leader of the National Revolution to take part here and to deliver a speech. With regards to the Israeli flag, somebody has highlighted that. This goes back to 29th of October of 3 years ago. And it was only a few days after 7th of October when the 7th Aban front with the Jewish community in Europe organized a session together. And all they wanted to do was to condemn the 7th of October crime. I don't see that as being a problem. Then somebody mentioned the executions. Why the Saudi executions were not mentioned and only Iranians are. And I want to say in 2025, 82% of executions took place in Iran. But after the November massacres, the January massacres, and now there are more and more executions, especially political one. And I think some 95% of executions are now taking place in Iran. And I think the world has to say something. And now, what do we expect from Europe? I think like in the 90s, when you took a stance against crimes against humanity in Yugoslavia, you should do the same in Srebrenica. Some 8,000 were killed. And that was deemed as a crime against humanity and a massacre. But they have adopted silence with regards to Iran. Europe seems to have lost its courage. It reminds me what Churchill said with regard to Chamberlain, that there between shame and war, he took shame. And now, what can Europe do? Europe should stop cooperating with the Islamic Republic. Macron was happy that 2 French hostages were freed, and as he was the year before. I have to cut this short because I've been told to, I have no more time, but I hope to speak to you further in future sessions. Thank you.
Behzadi.
It is very sad that I hear some people ignore the fact that we in Iran have seen people showing the flag of Iran, the national flag, the original flag, the lion and sun flag, calling for Prince Reza Pahlavi, thousands in the streets who got killed, the youth, the kids, the elderlies. And then the focus goes from the people of Iran getting killed, getting murdered, getting massacred by the regime to Israel and America, and if that's correct, to have the war with the Islamic regime. So I think we need to have a review on history and what we are talking about and the questions that we ask. Somebody says, oh, I get irritated when you say Prince Reza Pahlavi. This is very interesting because this person is Prince anyway, as Miss Ebadi said. That's one thing. And the other is, so you get irritated by the people of Iran, by the ones who got killed, the ones who called for Prince, the ones who showed his picture. Are you irritated? Why are we here? We are here for the people of Iran, not a specific group. I should emphasize on this. We are here for lords, for gilakis, for courts, for everyone from every corner of the country. If there is a discrimination in Iran, it's because of the ideology, the Islamism, which started, the whole revolution started with the mixture of communism and Islamism. That is the main problem that we are dealing with in Iran. Let's have a focus on that. I'm Lor, I'm from the ethnic Lor. Should I talk about why I don't speak Lori, why this and that happened to Lords? Then what about other my dear patriots? And the movement of Zan Zendegi Azadi, somebody said that it was a Kurdistan movement. No, it was a national movement of Iran. Because when a Kurd died, we didn't care who she was from. We just cared that it was an Iranian person. So everybody came out to the streets. What about other cities? What about us? What about the people who are out from every ethnic, every language, every dialect in Iran, united, calling for Reza Pahlavi, Prince Reza Pahlavi? I should focus on that, emphasize on that, and then showing his pictures in the streets, and then getting killed and massacred by the regime for the same reason. What about them? Shouldn't we see them? What about the films, all the clips on the internet? The families of the massacred children. And then, why don't we talk about the fact that Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi was candidate for Nobel Prize? Why do you think was that? So all we hear is that, yeah, we had a dictator, and now the prince, and then they want to get back to monarchy. This is the call of people. As some of you repeatedly said, this is not anyone's decision but the people of Iran. And the people of Iran are calling for Prince. And the interesting thing is that the Prince, what he's doing is not for monarchy or getting back to it. We may go back to it if the election goes towards that. But right now, we are in transitional period. What he is asking for is to get united, everybody, under an umbrella with the 4 principles that Mr. Bashirtash already mentioned. The Iran's integrity, to care for the whole land to be kept, and then the equality of every citizen of Iran, whether it's Lor, whether it's Kurd, whether it's Tehrani, no matter what or where and what religion they have, everybody to be equal, women, men, any other gender or sex. And then to have the separation between the state and the religion. One of the main problems that we have is having the Islamist state. And everything is on that fundamentalist belief. Is that enough? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you to all our speakers. We now come to the end of today's item, but nonetheless, I see that the S&D coordinator has requested to take the floor. Please, Nacho.
Yeah, I stick to my idea that I expressed clearly that it's not our role to decide on behalf of the Iranian people. Whatever the Iranian people is decided democratically, we are accepted and we are okay. I only want to clarify to Mr. Bashirtash, we invited Mr. Pahlavi more than 1 month ago, and he decided that he had another commitment. But the invitation was convened. We agreed on the name of Mr. Pahlavi and other names, and then please don't insist in there that we have to invite it. We did it, and he decided freely not to attend this gathering. And for that reason, because I'm the coordinator of my group, and this was the decision of the coordinators board, and I would like to be very clear on that. I'm not expressing any preference. My only preference is for the Iranian people to have the opportunity to express democratically who they want to be the rulers of the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Nacho. Would anyone else? No, it's only for members to applause. Yes? Would anyone else like to take the floor? That is not the case. Then I would like to thank, Ms. Sorel.
I was disturbed.
J'ai été perturbée, choquée.
I was disturbed. I was shocked by this request, Madam, to rewrite history. That there was a kind of disdain. I was shocked by that. I didn't find that a very diplomatic form of behaviour to accuse us of not knowing our history. I just wanted to make that comment.
So, I don't see Miss Neumann, please.
Yes. I think we have given you today a wonderful example how diverse a parliament can be and yet govern 500 million people. So maybe that can serve as an idea of where united in diversity Iran could head to.
I would like to thank our guest speakers for attending today's meeting. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Thank you for coming to Brussels. I think this was very valuable for us to get a better insight. Once again, thank you very much and all the best for you personally. And also thanks to Ms. Ebadi who was connected online. We will continue our meeting in 2 minutes with the next item.